When you decide you want to try screenwriting, it can be hard to know where to begin. Some people will tell you to grab an overly broad book, or take an overpriced class, or to just start reading scripts without any idea what to even look for. That can make for a frustrating and often expensive learning experience, but if you instead break screenwriting down into the components that we can directly study and practice, you can develop your craft quickly so you can effectively get stories out of your head and onto the page. Lucky for us, Aristotle pretty much figured out these components over 2,300 years ago when he wrote Poetics. Yeah, I know, I just dissed overly broad books, but we're going to be touching on a few seminal pieces and more focused works that I've all personally read and found helpful. But if a shelf full of books isn't in your budget, or you just prefer the video format, I'll be covering a ton of the same topics in future videos, so just be sure to subscribe so you don't miss them here. Aristotle identified 6 components of drama in Poetics, and the first 4 still lay the foundation for a great screenplay to this day. So just like Aristotle, we're going to start by focusing on plot. Plot is simply the arrangement of incidents that moves a story forward, but that arrangement, the story structure, has been the source of arguments going back millennia. The next big series I'm doing on this channel will be a deep dive into structure, but if you're just getting started, you only need to learn 1 or 2 of these ideas to write a great screenplay. To begin with, you can think of most scripts as being written in 3 acts. The first act is the setup, exploring the characters and world as they were until something incites a change. It could be as big as a catastrophic earthquake.
It jumped to a 7.1!
Or as small as calling over a bellboy.
George Kaplan.
Boy.
But something has to be a catalyst for the story. As the protagonist takes on whatever comes of that incident, they'll reach a point of no return. It might be a moment where their personal world will never be the same, like a new guardian or parent taking a role in their life.
What are you doing here, Uncle Rico?
Grandma took a little spill at the sand dunes today. Broke her coccyx.
Or it could be a literal world-changing event, like walking through a wardrobe in England and discovering Narnia on the other side.
Lucy! Lucy!
Crossing that threshold breaks us into the second act. The second act contains the rising action of the story, where our protagonist attempts to resolve whatever was brought on by the inciting incident. But the more they try, the more difficult the journey and the higher the stakes, until they learn some lesson.
I know what I have to do, but going back means I'll have to face my past.
Act 3 sees our protagonist take on the main conflict, equipped with this new knowledge that finally lets them overcome the forces working against them. Be it a cartoonish villain, an act of nature, a character's health, or anything else that opposes our hero's goal. What exactly happens within these acts isn't totally agreed upon, but there are 2 templates that dominate talk in the industry. And you'll want to read their books or look up summaries, or just keep an eye on this channel for future videos about them. However you do it, just be sure to learn at least one of the 2. The first is the hero's journey, originally laid out in Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces, and later made easier for writers to digest in Christopher Vogler's The Writer's Journey. These provide specific character archetypes and clear story beats to develop each act. Blake Snyder provided a more screenwriting-specific template in Save the Cat, which lays out modern story beats that can be largely applied to almost every successful Hollywood movie. Once you learn either of these structures and apply it to your script, you'll already be leagues ahead of most of the screenplays producers are sent. Now, you probably noticed I used the term protagonist quite a bit in discussing plot. They're the main character that drives the story forward, and how you develop them and their surrounding characters should be your next area of focus. While there is a lot that goes into crafting great characters, you can get 90% of the way there by focusing on just 2 things: your character's goals and motivations. Every character needs a goal, something that they want, something that causes them to take action. The difference with your protagonist is that their primary goal should be related to the central conflict and drive the main plot. In Star Wars: A New Hope, Luke's primary goal is to deliver the Death Star plans to the rebellion.
I have placed information vital to the survival of the rebellion into the memory systems of this R2 unit.
But his motivation is more complex than just disliking the Empire.
It's not that I like the Empire, I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it right now.
He's a farm boy who's always wanted to be a part of something more important.
Oh, Biggs is right. I'm never gonna get out of here.
He's also the son of a Jedi that he believes died fighting the Empire.
I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father.
And Obi-Wan thinks he can learn the ways of the Force like his father before him.
You must learn the ways of the Force.
Luke's also the perfect combo of idealistic and courageous, mixed with immaturity and impatience.
He feared you might follow old Obi-Wan on some damn fool idealistic crusade like your father did.
So when his aunt and uncle are killed by the Empire, when a normal person might just grieve or become bitter, he's uniquely suited to take action against the Empire, to commit to the central conflict.
I want to come with you to Alderaan. There's nothing for me here now.
Characters' goals are often just as complex and layered as their motivations. There will be big goals, small goals, and sub-goals, and they'll probably change over the acts or even between scenes. Luke's primary goal in A New Hope focuses on the Death Star, but along the way he has to find transportation, rescue Princess Leia, and much more. And his goal for the trilogy is to learn the way of the Force to take on the Empire in total. And it's not just the protagonist that has goals. Every character does. But where the protagonist's goals have to drive the plot, supporting characters only have to, well, support it. Han Solo doesn't care about the rebellion, at least not at the beginning of A New Hope. He's only flying Luke and Obi-Wan because he needs the credits to pay off his debt. A very different goal from Luke, but the results support the plot. He takes them to Alderaan, or at least where Alderaan used to be.
So I'm trying to tell you, kid, it ain't there. It's totally blown away.
In fact, in every scene with Han before he swoops in to help Luke in the trench run, his goals are focused on himself and his credits.
Well, more wealth than you can imagine.
I don't know, I can imagine quite a bit.
And when you know what your character wants and why they want it, their goals and motivations, then you know what they need to do to move toward it in any situation. Which is why great character writing is really just an exercise in creating the compelling backgrounds and traits that influence a character's goals and motivations. To generate those backgrounds and traits, some writers develop pages and pages of backstory and psychological analysis for nearly every named character in their story. But you really don't need to. We don't need Han's entire life story. We only need to know that he's an experienced smuggler who owes a scary guy some serious credits. Stay focused on the information that impacts the plot, the traits that motivate them to behave or take action that moves the story forward. And if you want a shortcut to developing interesting backgrounds and traits for your characters, I highly recommend the Writers Helping Writers series, specifically the Emotional Wound, Occupation, and Positive and Negative Trait Thesauruses. They provide an index of character backgrounds and traits alongside suggestions for how these might affect a character's motivations and behavior. You can absolutely come up with these details from your imagination, but I love having these resources when I get a bit stuck. And with the basics of character work and plot and structure in hand, it's finally time to get to the bigger picture, your concept. Admittedly, we're straying from Aristotle a bit here, as he mainly focused on theme. But we're writing film and TV scripts, not 4th century BC Grecian plays. And Hollywood runs on plot-driven stories, so you'll want to focus on developing your ideation skills with that in mind. I'm not sure that coming up with these ideas for a movie or show is something you can really teach in a classroom or learn from a book. Sure, there are strategies and exercises, but I've never found a resource I could actually recommend. In my experience, ideation is usually born out of curiosity. It comes from asking, what if? They might be largely unexplored questions like, what if we could infiltrate people's dreams to plant ideas? Or based on existing stories or concepts like, what if Hamlet played out in the animal kingdom? These what if questions inspire the project, but they're only a jumping off point. A complete concept will contain the answer to 4 questions. What does the protagonist want? What is in their way? What will happen if they can't get it? And why do they need to pursue it now? Goals, obstacles, stakes, and urgency. If you have those 4 things, then you've got a working concept. Is it a good concept? Well, that's subjective. Your script needs to be able to answer those 4 questions, but how good it is will depend on how they're answered. There are plenty of basic concepts that turned out to be great movies because the characters or plot were masterfully written. In Lady Bird, the protagonist's goal is to attend a university in a more cultured city.
I want to go where culture is, like New York, or at least Connecticut or New Hampshire, where writers live in the woods.
Get into those schools anyway.
But she's up against all the coming-of-age drama we might expect from a high school senior.
I'm sorry that you're jealous.
Jenna is a moron, you know.
And a turbulent relationship with her mother.
Of course I love you.
Lady Bird comes out, looks at Marion with the pure question.
But do you like me?
If she doesn't get out of Sacramento, she feels like she'll be stuck there forever.
I have to get out of Sacramento. Why? Because it's soul-killing.
And the urgency comes from the social norms around attending college straight after high school and the general ideas of emerging adulthood and independence.
You give me a number for how much it costs to raise me, and I'm gonna get older and make a lot of money and write you a check for what I owe you so that I never have to speak to you again.
It answers all the questions, but the concept isn't what made the film such a success. A girl wants to go to college somewhere more interesting is kind of basic, but it's the unique character relationships and authentic exploration of adolescence that made this film such a hit with audiences and critics. And those are basically impossible to capture in just the concept. There are also plenty of intriguing ideas that never develop their plot or characters strongly enough to deliver on the promise of their premise. In Jumper, a guy with teleportation powers struggles to protect his loved ones when an ancient order of jumper hunters begins to resort to deadly tactics to track him down. It easily generates some interesting answers to our goals, obstacles, stakes, and urgency. But the movie falls flat with a muddled plot and head-scratching character choices. Concept alone just isn't enough to make a good movie or episode. Execution is still key. from the plot and characters to the actual words on the page. While the words in a screenplay don't generally appear on screen, it's still one of the most important areas of focus for new screenwriters. Your script will have to get past a number of readers before it can ever be brought to life. And the dialogue in your script will make it directly to the audience's ears through the performances. The literal words you use to represent the action and give your characters voices is what takes your script from an idea into a complete screenplay that reads effortlessly. Getting better at the literal writing portion of screenwriting, the diction and word choice, requires two sides of the same coin. You need to both read and write. Reading screenplays is one of the best ways to learn to identify good writing. And there are a bunch of great websites like ScriptSlug, the Script Lab, or TV Writing that host a ton of scripts freely available for educational purposes. But you can improve your own writing purely through examples and facts. You need to put all of that into practice. There are plenty of books like Spellbinding Sentences filled with exercises to expand your writing toolkit. I think this sort of practice is super helpful, but I know lots of writers who just want to work on their script. So if you've already laid the foundation with exercises or just want to stick to your screenplay, one of the best times to improve your writing is during a rewrite. Push yourself to finish a first draft of your script or scene. This can be what's often called a vomit draft, where you get out all the ideas onto the page without worrying too much about mistakes or concerning yourself with diction. Then go back through the script and focus on a single aspect that you want to improve. You might focus on a particular character's voice, or your action lines, or just varying your word choice.
I'd use a different word if I were you.
But stick to just a single one of these per pass so you can really hone that skill. Then do another pass focused on another aspect, and another until you've run out of places for improvement. Then go try to discover new techniques in books and scripts and videos on this channel, and do it all again. With each pass, you'll not only improve your script, you'll improve your writing craft. So the first draft of your next script will start in an even better place, and the rewrites will be more efficient. While the words on the page and the plots and characters and concepts they form are the domain of screenwriters, Aristotle's last two elements are less under our control, and aren't something you really need to worry too much about as you start your screenwriting journey. The melody literally concerns the songs of the Greek choruses that accompanied plays of the time. Scores and soundtracks are the modern day equivalents, but they're usually left up to production unless a particular song is meaningful to the story. The spectacle Aristotle was concerned with was the visual representation of things like sets and costumes. Writers do certainly control setting in their concepts and writing, and they can have a big impact on the story, but there isn't too much to study here. And costume and set design is mostly left up to production. But one element of dramatic writing Aristotle wasn't concerned with that we have to be as screenwriters is format. It's a quick litmus test for overworked readers, a sign of our professionalism to potential collaborators, and a secret handshake that tells industry players that we understand how things work. Which is why I created a whole series to help writers like you learn just about everything you'd ever need to know about script formatting completely free. And you can check it out right here.